Not every game ends once you turn it off.
I have always been a Dark Souls fan, and I love horror, folks. I've always liked playing horror games late at night. There's something about the silence of the world outside, the hum of my computer, and the way shadows stretch across my room when the only light is from my monitor. Horror games hit different at 3 a.m. They crawl under your skin in a way they could never during the day. That night, I was restless, couldn't sleep, so I booted up my favorite indie horror title, Shadows in the Fog. It wasn't a big game, nothing mainstream, just something a small developer had made. The servers were usually half empty, which made it even creepier. Most of the time, I played solo anyway. I clicked Create Lobby, Private, Invite Only. The fog rolled across the loading screen and I settled in. My character spawned on the cracked pavement of an abandoned street. Street lamps flickered above. The sound of water dripped from the broken gutters. In the distance, faint footsteps echoed. But when I turned my character around, the street was empty, just the fog swallowing everything past 20 feet. It was perfect. 15 minutes passed before something unusual happened. In the top right corner of the screen, a notification appeared. Player joined. Ashen won. Okay, I thought this is someone I knew from the Dark Souls. It was possible. I love Dark Souls, and the name said Ashen one. Okay, I blinked. Wait, that wasn't possible. This was my private lobby. No invites had been sent, no friends were online, yet the name hung there like a warning. I opened the player list. Sure enough, beneath my username was Ashen1. No rank, no profile picture, just a blank square where information should have been. I frowned, muttering, probably a glitch. But when I tried to click their name, the kick player option was missing. In fact, the game didn't even recognize me as host anymore. That's when I heard it. Footsteps, slow, deliberate, louder than the faint background steps I had gotten used to. I rotated my character, and there they were at the far end of the street. Standing still in the fog was another figure, too tall. The textures on its body were wrong, blurred, unfinished, like the developers had forgotten to polish the model. Its face was nothing but pale skin stretched tight, no features except dark holes where eyes should be. I typed into chat, "Hey, who are you? How did you join?" No reply. Instead, the figure began walking towards me. Each step echoed unnaturally loud, reverberating through my headphones until my heart began to thud in rhythm with it. I laughed nervously, convincing myself it was a troll, some modder with a hacked account. But as I tried to back my character away, something else happened. My microphone turned on. The little icon lit up in the corner, but I hadn't pressed anything. My mic wasn't even enabled in the settings, and then I heard a voice, low, distorted, like words bubbling up through water. "You shouldn't be here." I ripped my headset off and stared at it like it had betrayed me. My room was silent, but my chest tightened. With trembling hands, I put the headset back on. The figure had stopped moving, but the world around me had changed. No more foggy street. Instead, my character was in a long corridor, unfamiliar, rusty walls stretching endlessly in both directions. Red lights buzzed above, flickering in sickly patterns, and standing directly in front of me was Ashen One. Their model was clear now. Fair, white skin, like skin was peeling off. A mouth that opened too wide, splitting unnaturally, though no teeth were inside. And when I spoke, it spoke again. The voice was sharper, Why did you invite me? I stammered out loud, though my mic was muted. I didn't. My lobby was private. The character titled its head. The character tilted its head. Movements jerky like broken animation frames. Then text filled my chat box, letter by letter. Ashen one says, but I was waiting. My pulse raced. I slammed the escape key, nothing. Alt plus F4, nothing. Control plus Alt plus delete, nothing. The game had me trapped. And then my mouse moved by itself. The cursor slid smoothly across the menu and clicked continue. My hands weren't on it. The screen changed. My character was now in a room that looked horribly familiar. It was my room. The posters on the wall, the messy desk. I cannot forget anything. The bed was the same. Everything was the same. The game had recreated everything. And on screen, sitting at the desk, was an in game version of me. Same hoodie, same slouched posture, headphones glowing blue. I leaned forward, heart hammering. The camera panned. Behind the in-game version of me stood Ashen One. I ripped my headset off again and spun in my chair. My dark room was empty. Nothing but the hum of my PC. When I turned back to the monitor, Ashen One was gone. The in-game version of me sat frozen, unmoving, staring into the screen. The chat box opened once more. Ashen One says, don't turn around again. I slammed my laptop shut. My chest felt like it might burst. I sat there, gasping, every muscle locked, and then it came. 3 knocks, soft, on my bedroom door. I froze. I live alone. I didn't sleep that night. I kept the lights on, eyes darting to the door every few minutes. No more knocks came, but I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The next day, I searched the game's forums. My post was simple. Who is Ashen One? Someone joined my private lobby at 3 a.m. Replies came quickly. One user wrote, don't joke about that. Ashen One isn't a player. It was an NPC. NPCs are the non-playable characters. So, this user wrote that it was an NPC the developers deleted years ago. The code was unstable. It kept spawning in private lobbies, scaring players. They purged it completely. It is gone now. I stared at the screen, throat dry. Then another reply popped up beneath it. Not from a regular user, from an account named Ashen One. Ashen One says, why did you invite me? I didn't reply. I just unplugged my computer, shoved it into the closet, and left it there. But sometimes when the house is quiet, I still hear faint footsteps in the hallway. And sometimes, late at night, I hear those 3 soft knocks again. And sometimes, in my sleep, I also hear, why did you invite me? I'm not the kind of person who usually buys second-hand stuff, but a few months ago I walked into this tiny pawn shop on the edge of town, the kind of place that smells like dust and old cigarette smoke, and I saw something on the shelf that caught my attention. It was a used gaming console, an older model, but in good condition, no scratches, no cracks, just a little dusty. The guy behind the counter sold it to me for cheap, practically begging me to take it off his hands. He said, works fine. Came in last week. Some kid traded it. At the time, I didn't think much of it. A deal is a deal. I grabbed it, I brought it home and set it up in my room. The moment I hit the power button, though, something felt off. There wasn't the usual startup logo. Instead, the screen went straight to a game already running. No menu, no dashboard, just gameplay. My character was standing in the middle of a forest, surrounded by tall, skeletal trees. The graphics were weirdly realistic, too detailed for the console. The wind hissed through the branches, and I swear I could hear leaves crunching like they were in my own room. I thought that this realistic console, I've hit a jackpot because it was even better than the latest console at that time. I searched the system's menu, but there was no sign of the game being installed, no disk in the tray, nothing. It was just there. The character on screen was named after me, my full name. I swear I hadn't typed it in. At first, I thought it was some creepy Easter egg or maybe the previous owner messing with the save files, but the longer I played, the stranger it got. The game didn't have a HUD or objectives, it just guided me. The forest path bent naturally, pulling my character along like I wasn't in control, and every so often, whispers would echo through my headset, not game characters, not scripted lines, whispers of people saying my name. Don't leave. You shouldn't be here. I tried turning the console off. The screen went black for a moment, but then flickered back on. The game was still running. My heart dropped. The next night, I decided to test it again. I turned it on, and once again, no home screen, just the game, already in progress. This time, my character wasn't in the forest anymore. He was standing in a dark, rotting hallway. Wallpaper peeling, lights flickering. The camera shifted on its own, showing a shadow moving at the far end. The figure was tall, head tilted unnaturally to the side. It didn't move, not at first, but as I pushed my joystick forward, guiding my character, the figure mirrored me, step for step. It was like looking at a reflection that wasn't quite synced. I paused the game, or at least I tried to, but there was no pause option. The menu button didn't work. My controller vibrated violently in my hands until I set it down. The character on screen kept walking anyway. That's when I realized the figure wasn't just mirroring my character, it was mirroring me. When I leaned forward in my chair, the figure leaned forward in the hallway. When I scratched my head, it raised its head to its face. I ripped the controller out of the console and threw it into my bed. The figure didn't stop. By the third night, I was obsessed. I needed answers. Who has made this game? Why was it on this console? When I turned it on again, the game had changed once more. My character was now sitting in a room that looked exactly like mine. My desk, my posters, even the pile of clothes I'd left in the corner. The figure was gone. At least I thought so. Then the camera began to pan. Slowly, shakily, it swiveled from the desk to the bed, to the door, and then, finally, towards the in-game window. Outside, in the darkness beyond the glass, stood the figure, still watching. The whispers returned, louder this time. You brought it home? Why did you bring it here? I slammed the console's power button. Nothing. I yanked the cord from the wall. The screen finally went dark. But in that split second before it powered down, I swear I saw the figure turn its head, not in the game, on the reflection of my black monitor. I didn't touch the console for days. I shoved it into my closet, buried under the clothes, and tried to forget it. But at night, when the house was quiet, I could still hear faint static coming from inside. Finally, I decided to return it. I drove back to the pawn shop, console in hand, but when I pulled up, the windows were dark. The door was chained shut. A faded sign hung on the door, closed, out of business. The shop was abandoned. Confused, I asked around. One of the nearby store owners told me the pawn shop had shut down 5 years ago, after the owner had died, but I'd been there last week. I had spoken to him. I had bought the console from his own hands. I went home shaking. The console was still on the passenger seat. I didn't know what else to do, so I brought it inside. That night, as I lay in bed, I heard it. The console had turned itself on in the closet. The faint hum of static leaked into the room. I forced myself to get up, open the closet, and face it. On the screen, my character was lying in bed. My bed. In the exact same position as me, breathing slowly, eyes closed, the camera pulled back. In the corner of the in game room, the figure was crouched, watching me sleep, and then, through the static, the whispers returned, louder than ever. We are not in the game anymore. I turned the console off for the last time. I unplugged it, carried it outside, and left it on the curb for the trash collectors. But it didn't matter because the next morning when I woke up, the console was back, sitting neatly under my TV stand, and the controller was in my lap. Play it forever was written on the mirror in my bedroom. I never thought much about strange downloads. You see, I grew up trawling shady forums, old file sharing sites, and sketchy corners of the internet just to find hidden horror games. Most of the time, they were cheap knockoffs, half finished prototypes, or silly jump scare junk. But one night, I stumbled across something different. The post was buried deep in a forum that hadn't been active in years. The thread was titled, "If you play this game, don't ignore it. It knows." The link was still alive. Against my better judgment, I clicked it and downloaded the file. No virus, no warnings, just a simple folder named echoes.exe. I thought it would be fun, maybe even something creepy I could tell my friends about later, but I wasn't laughing for long. When I launched the game, there was no title screen, no menu. It just opened straight to gameplay. My character stood in the middle of a dimly lit street, empty houses on either side, no background music, no sound except for the faint hum of streetlights. The odd part was the name, my character's name tag. Floating above the little avatar's head wasn't random. It was my name, my full, real name. I froze, I had never typed it in. My computer username wasn't even close. I brushed it off as a coincidence. Maybe the game had scanned my PC somehow, or maybe it was just a trick. That had to be it, obviously. So I started moving. The character walked slowly down the road. At the far end was a glowing sign. When I got close enough, the letters came into view. "Don't be late for work tomorrow." I laughed nervously, creepy, but also oddly specific. The thing is, I really didn't have a shift the next morning. I worked at a warehouse part-time, and my boss was strict about showing up on time. Still, I shook it off. Maybe the developers programmed generic phrases. I turned the game off and went to bed. The next morning, my alarm didn't go off. I overslept. By the time I got to the warehouse, my boss was waiting. He glared at me and said, "Don't be late for work tomorrow." My stomach dropped. The game had predicted it. That night, curiosity got the better of me. I opened the game again. This time, my character was standing inside a grocery store aisle, shelves lined with empty boxes. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, and at the end of the aisle, a glowing sign appeared again. I walked closer. "Buy milk," she is going to ask. I frowned. It felt so stupidly specific, but I decided to humor it. The next day, my sister called. She was stopping by after work. Before hanging up, she said, "Hey, can you pick up some milk?" My heart skipped 2 for 2. By the third night, I wasn't just curious, I was obsessed. I wanted to know what it would predict next. When I launched the game, the screen was darker than before. My character stood in my street, not a generic street, my actual street. My house was there. down to the cracked driveway and the dented mailbox, exactly the same. I pushed the joystick forward, moving my character towards my house. A glowing sign flickered to life near the door. Don't open the door tomorrow. He is not who you think. I swallowed hard. The next day, around noon, I heard a knock. It was my neighbor, Daniel. He smiled, asked if I had jumper cables. He seemed normal, friendly, but the words from the game burned in my mind. Don't open the door tomorrow. He is not who you think. So I lied, told him I didn't have cables. He nodded, but the look in his eyes lingered, cold, too long. When he turned to leave, I noticed something I hadn't before. The back pocket of his jeans, a knife, handle sticking out. By the fourth night, I was terrified but unable to stop. The game launched instantly again. This time, my character was standing in a hospital corridor, white walls, flickering lights. My footsteps echoed against tile as I moved forward. At the end of the hall, the glowing sign appeared. She won't survive. I froze. Who? Who was it talking about? The next day, my phone rang. It was my aunt. My grandmother had been rushed to the hospital. She'd been sick for a very long time, but we didn't know that her time was now. We all knew her time was near, but is it now? But still, my blood ran cold as I remembered the words. By evening, she was gone. The game had been right again. I should have stopped there, but curiosity gets the better of a man. I should have deleted it, thrown my PC out, burned the hard drive, but I didn't. I needed to know how far this went. The fifth night was the worst. The game opened to my room, exact room, down to the soda can on my desk and the pile of clothes in the corner. My character was sitting in a chair, staring at the screen, just like me. I pushed the joystick, but the character didn't move. Instead, the camera turned slowly towards the in game window. Outside, standing perfectly still, was a figure. Tall, shadowy, its head tilted in a way no humans should. The glowing sign flickered into life on the glass. Don't look outside tonight. My hands shook as I set the controller down. My throat was dry. For hours I sat frozen, staring at the black monitor after I finally shut it down. Every little sound in the house made me jump. The creak of pipes, the rattle of wind against the window. At some point, I couldn't take it anymore. My curiosity won. I turned slowly towards my real window, and there, in the darkness outside, was a figure, tall, head tilted, watching carefully. I snapped the blinds shut and didn't sleep at all that night. By the sixth night, I didn't want to play, but the game launched itself. No click, no input, just turned on while I sat on my desk. My character was standing in front of a glowing sign. No environment, no background, just endless black. The sign read, "You can't stop it. Tomorrow, it is you." I yanked the plug from the wall. My PC went dead. I didn't touch it again. That was weeks ago. I have told myself the predictions might have just been coincidences. Maybe my brain connected the dots that weren't there. Maybe it was just a weird arc someone coded for fun. But I can't shake the last message. Tomorrow, it is you. And every night since then, I have heard faint static in my room, even with the PC unplugged. Sometimes, when the room is quiet, I see the reflections of my monitor flicker just for a second, and I think the game is waiting for me to open it again, for it to be right one last time. Sometimes when I am sleeping, I suddenly wake up. When I look at my window, I see someone standing there, watching closely, and it won't stop. It won't ever stop. This might be my fate forever.
For regular horror content, like the video, subscribe the channel, hit the notification icon, and sleep with your eyes wide open.